Yeah, and then this is what Luminosity, I think, does so well. They recognize where their losing was on the map. Snoopy was getting ahead from them, and because they've been around for so long, they start putting pressure on them. They don't let that duo lane get ahead of them. It felt like night and day when all of a sudden BaRRaCCuDDa was the one ahead.
I just don't understand, honestly, because Snoopy had the lead. Cynosure that he tried to make a play in the solo lane happen, but it just wasn't enough because LG almost like knew it in the back of their mind, like, okay, we're just going to invade the speed buff. Whatever happens, happens. Mask was the sacrificial lamb with that initial 1-for-3 play, and that continuously spiraled out of control for Kiki as he got levels behind Aquarius.
Yeah, Mask and Aquarius in particular were the real problem for Trifecta in that last game. They took that lead from Kiki and they never gave it back up. But we do have those picks and bans ready. Let's see what Trifecta can do to try and at least get this split up against Luminosity, who are looking like world beaters right now.
See, when I saw the Naja, I was expecting maybe a Scylla, Raw, Thoth, something with big burst, like a
big follow-up, right? Yeah.
One-shot burst. You know, Raijin does have the big burst follow-up with the 4 shots, but it's channeled burst, right? It takes a little bit of time, and if you use the beads after you land from Naja, ultimately you could simply just walk away from Raijin. However, I like the idea that they had the lane control with the double bounces. It just wasn't enough, considering Cynosure just wasn't paired up with Hurriwind enough, I want to say.
Osiris is the first ban for Trifecta, looking to try and take some solo laners away from Aquarius on LG and make his life a little bit harder after the shutdown that he did on Kiki in that last game, so that's not a surprise. But I am expecting, after what we've been seeing lately, some more focus on like the supports, like Ganesha. We've seen that a lot too, now that Terra's not really as big an option.
I mean, it could be still more focus on the solo lane, because Luminosity first picked Erlang Shen in this first game, and Trifecta, recognizing this now, could look to either ban it away, maybe first pick it away from Aquarius. That's why they banned the Osiris, respecting how aggressive Aquarius is in general. With some of the nerfs here for solo laners, Erlang Shen has been on the rise.
Instead, they choose to ban out the Hu-Yi. They don't want to give that hyper carry option to BaRRaCCuDDa, but I mean, he looked fine to me on the Jing that last game, so I'm sure he'd be happy to pick it up and run that one back. LG still have one more ban to make, though, before we start moving into the first picks.
BaRRaCCuDDa is always going to be fine, no matter if you give him Jing or something else. You can give him.
He can play Xbalanque.
Xbalanque and Musenkab. He actually probably likes those two gods above all other gods. I'm pretty sure his team just won't let him play it, but it's all right, John. I got you.
Terra is the ban out here, so LG still a little bit worried about Terra despite that recent change where now she just slows on that initial burst out. So it's not as if Terra is unplayable. That slow is still very potent, but giving their supports a little bit of time maybe to adjust to that change.
And she still provides such a heavy impact with that global ultimate. She's able to make a clear casting for the rest of you and your team. If you're sitting with 5% mana, all of a sudden now the rest of your cooldowns are going to be free to cast, and not only that, the mobility she provides and a little bit of control with the collapsing walls.
And I think we see why Trifecta weren't so worried about banning Erlang Shen. Like, hey, we'll just first pick it. We'll take it for ourselves, and Mass looking to run back that Ratatoskr.
I wouldn't be surprised, however, if Trifecta could flex that for Cynosure potentially. Knowing Kiki, he doesn't necessarily always like the aggressive warriors. He's more of this utility style solo laner, willing to sacrifice himself, allow Snoopy and others to get ahead.
We saw that last game where he's willing to sacrifice himself. Jing is the pickup for BaRRaCCuDDa, so the Hu-Yi ban only lets BaRRaCCuDDa go down to the Jing, so I'm sure he's still comfortable there. And Fafnir picked up for Trifecta, so likely Aror will be running that one back.
I mean, better safe than sorry. Luminosity got the W there to great fashion, and just like there was never a time except for that one team fight around the red-purple buff area that I was worried for LG. And honestly, their late game with their global pressure, with their coordination, was just so good. I'm not surprised that they're running back the same exact comp so far.
Yeah, getting the Ratatoskr and the Jing one more time, who both did well last game. And if Aquarius can't have Erlang Shen, looks like he might be willing to take Chulainn. Chulainn does have a little bit of flex factor there for him, but likely going to be going to Aquarius.
We've been known to see some Ratatoskrs in the solo lane back in the day. We haven't seen it too recently, but Chulainn could provide a lot of control in coming out of the jungle, rather. So Mask, depending on what he wants to do and depending on the rest of Trifecta's composition, it's going to be Aquarius probably playing Chulainn because he's going to be against a very aggressive Ravana or Erlang Shen.
Amuzin Cobb is the ban for Luminosity. They don't want to let that. They don't want to let that through. They know Amuzin Cobb can kind of run games nowadays, especially with them getting that solo farm in that long lane now. He's under less pressure than ever, so it's a little bit easier to pick him up.
Despite Amuzin Cobb not having any sort of escapes, his boxing is just the best in a 1v1, and that's something that BaRRaCCuDDa or JeffHindla.
He's the bee's knees.
He's the bee's knees. What can we say? And Luminosity respecting it. Yeah, you went there.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. We're done for today.
Why did people vote for you again on the caster?
I don't know. Stop doing it, guys. You're just going to hear more bee's knees jokes. Soul, though, does come out for Luminosity, so that's likely going to be for Baskin, as if carrying on Kronos wasn't enough. He wants to show us what he can do on Soul Team.
Honestly, he could have played Kronos again, but I think he's just kind of bored. He's like, you know what? Play Kronos. Give me the Soul. I don't need the time stop. I don't need the rewind. I'm just going to melt people.
But Ra picked up for Trifecta, so this is another strong pick for him over there in the middle lane. Ra can bring a lot for your team.
Yes, especially with some setup from Trifecta. You're looking at the ultimate and the root from Erlang Shen. I almost forgot that it was Aror on Trifecta, and that could have been support after the first pick, but once Fafnir was locked in, I'm like, okay, everything's normal in the world. Aror's playing the Fafnir. There's not much to worry about, but the setup is still very evident. Ravana can slow you. Erlang Shen can keep you in place. The Ra Searing Pain is definitely going to hurt with a few items online.
And what a world were you able to last pick Ganesha as Luminosity were for JeffHindla. So I'm sure he's laughing. He gets to wait all the way to the end to pick up one of the best supports in the game right now. But as you said, Hurriwind going to be relying on that taunt from KikiSoCheeky. Even Cynosure in the jungle with that root can help set up a snipe for Hurriwind if they're communicating well. So that could be a point that Trifecta are looking at his Luminosity group up as 5 in the jungle.
Cynosure going for a very early blink. He wants to use that to engage, drop the fist on him, and if anyone disengages, just to ulti on top.
BaRRaCCuDDa in a lot of trouble already. The blinking from Cynosure was not quite enough, but that does mean BaRRaCCuDDa is going to have that dash as his first ability.
This is why you save your ability at level 1. If he doesn't get that first ability, or the third ability off the dash, then the fist from Cynosure connect after the blink. He's going to get continuously slowed, and that would have been an easy first blood, and that would have heavily favored Snoopy trying to out-farm.
It looks like the plan one more time is going to be to have Snoopy and Hurriwind chill in middle lane, and then possibly have Aror go over and defend that duo, but he's still looking to try and get a little bit more, and just placing a deep ward so they can have an idea on where Luminosity is going to be as Snoopy and Hurriwind push middle.
Aror doesn't have the sprint available, so he's kind of putting himself in this position where he's not really going to do anything except be a nuisance against Barry. He's like, really? You're going to stop me from doing my own buffs? And it makes sense. You've invested 500 gold as a hunter to clear camps. One support is stopping you from doing that. Disrupting your flow completely in the early game could be the thing that Trifecta lean on.
And Hurriwind and Snoopy use the pressure that they have in mid lane by bringing Snoopy over to invade on the red buff and try and take that away from Luminosity, as well as come over and, or Luminosity at least come over and defend their own blue buff. But that's what we see happening over here is that they're able to go in and try and still summon that farm away.
Mask taking a little bit of poke, but not until Kiki takes a lot in return. Having to use that sprint defensively, respecting the fact that Aquarius transforms into the rage form, but he missed both his abilities. Kiki just walks away.
Kiki using that extra movement speed from the sprint to kite around long enough for that 72 transformations to come up, and that gets him out of dodge, able to knock up through Aquarius and get out of there as if there was never any kind of problem. But again, now it's going to be Aror who's the one that's back as Cynosure uses that blink to go in and is off the mark.
Mask just so aware of the relic from Cynosure. He kept his distance that far on purpose, going further away from the archers, but still in range if that the melee minions were to die, that he would absorb that golden experience.
And this is the ebb and flow of that pressure that they get in the middle lane. JeffHindla and BaRRaCCuDDa were able to come over and try and contest Snoopy and Hurriwind at that red buff. They were able to secure it themselves, but that's sort of the 50-50 that you put yourself in when you have the pressure and you only have a Guardian over here in the long lane.
But despite having these 2 red buffs, you're leaving a Fafnir alone to soak up some of the solo farm, having to lose some of it under the tower. It's not the same story as a Ganesh being able to solo farm with the passive, being able to get full credit from last hits. He doesn't even need to honestly use his abilities as long as that the minions are killing them. He's chilling.
Luminosity at least do pick up the Oracle, so now they're the ones with vision in that area. They can at least tell if anyone tries to rotate through or take a look at least, but probably not going to be any Gold Fury starting off this early. Though Fafnir is pretty good at helping out someone like Snoopy with that coerce, but probably not this early.
Especially with a sprint in case somebody gets in trouble from Trifecta. He needs to be at the right place at the right time just to get his Hunter out of a little bit of danger. But the way Snoopy has been playing the early game in both games 1 and 2, I'm not really too worried coming out of him.
Now, though, we finally see Snoopy come back over and join Fafnir, join the Dwarf in this long lane, and trying to leave some of this pressure and pick up this farm, as Aror is, thanks to getting that farm, going to hit level 5 a little bit before JeffHindla. In fact, they're both 5, so they had a small moment where they had ultimates available when Luminosity didn't, but Luminosity are the ones with the weight.
Snoopy is sitting at level 6 now.
Wow.
BaRRa still 4.
Wow.
2 health, 2 multi-pots for Ram. Only 1 health, 1 mana for BaRRaCCuDDa. Getting stunned out yet again as Jeff is trying to silence out Trifecta. All they're trying to do is clear this wave.
That rollback from Snoopy was sick right as the dash is coming off from JeffHindla, and the Dharmic Pillars were committed as well, so Snoopy really, without giving up anything, the ultimate comes out from Jeff, so he's okay.
These players have been playing against each other for so long that they can read any little tendency that they do, like, oh my goodness, he went right instead of left, he's gonna dash me.
And apparently he did. He opened up the book that is JeffHindla, and on the page it said, I'm trying to get the dash, and he rolls back to avoid it. Now Snoopy happily still sitting on his ultimate while JeffHindla's got to wait just a little while before he gets that up. But the relic from Trifecta, the sprint, did come out from Aror, so they at least were able to force that out.
Still on cooldown for another 100 seconds. Will be up around 6-minute mark. That's going to be important considering that some of these buffs will be coming up. Specifically, this red and purple buff. Trifecta needs to be wary here if they're going to try to defend their red and purple.
And Kiki, because we've been talking a lot about this dual lane, I'm sure is happy on that solo lane side to be back in an even matchup this time, instead of last game where they were taking his buffs from him on cooldown. So now look for this Erlang Shen that Kiki's piling to be able to rotate into these team fights and have an equal impact with what Aquarius is doing when he comes in.
And because of how Kiki plays whenever he's behind, whenever you give him sort of a lead, he could easily run away with it. That's why a lot of teams will be very mindful and try to not necessarily sit and camp on his lane, but just to keep an eye on him, to keep some tabs, make sure he doesn't get too far out of control. The way Kiki has manifested himself coming back into the SPL has been very impressive to me, at least.
I agree.
He took a little bit of a break, came back with Oxygen Supremacy that went on a very dominant 7-2 gauntlet run, and despite not requalifying to the SPL, his talents were recognized, and he took Walrus' spot here for Trifecta.
And there are players in the SPL where I think their contributions to the team aren't always recognized. Weekend kind of comes to mind. I think Kiki as well. He doesn't necessarily get the kills as Hurriwind gets stopped right on the damage from those Dharmic Pillars, perfectly played by JeffHindla, sets up Baskin for the kill. And that's what JeffHindla does. He makes his carries look good.
And looking like making his solo laner look good. Cynosure taking out Aquarius. Great rotation here, making sure Kiki gets a little bit of a lead, but Luminosity, they're getting the better end of this one because they're going to get the Gold Fury.
When you attack, when you gank on the solo lane, especially when they just got a kill, they take the Gold Fury. That's what they were able to do so well on this side. It was Luminosity. Now that Gold League is looking about 1,000 in their favor off the back of a trade and kills, but the neutral objective is theirs.
Especially with that first blood to follow suit, it was just so important for Luminosity to just keep the pressure going on the left-hand side. It's actually Trifecta initially that keeps the ball rolling on the left-hand side of the map between both of these games, but now Luminosity are doing a little bit of a 180, keeping their playbook just very diverse with almost infinite amount of pages and chapters.
And I want to talk a little bit more about JeffHindla because he's the one that I feel like made that engagement happen. He drops the Dharmic Pillars, and he perfectly times it so that Baskin is on it. While you're on it, you're taking continuous damage from those edges, and that's sort of the inherent synergy in the kit that JeffHindla, it's hard to do. JeffHindla did it perfectly.
This is why they practice. And yeah, we're talking about practice here. These players, day in and day out, will do 3 or more hours of scrims, let alone play ranked outside of scrims, whether or not they stream it is another story, or whether or not they're playing on their actual real account. And this is just the mechanics that some of them have.
So far, Snoopy getting a little bit of the better of this trade, but after missing a couple autos, BaRRaCCuDDa comes back. Hurriwind committing the ultimate, though, on to JeffHindla, brings him down to about half health, and he'll be forced to back off.
Trying to find maybe a little bit of additional play in the mid lane. Remember, Cynosure does have that blink. Could look to dive JeffHindla, but not wanting to pull the trigger quite yet. Instead, trying to make sure that something's happening on the left-hand side against Baskin.
And they do get the stun off as Aror, but Baskin's just fine. There really wasn't any follow-up. Likely the call came out from mid as Baskin and BaRRaCCuDDa started to back up as soon as that rotation came out, so they had no problems backing off.
LG getting their own purple buff, not going to have to worry about that one. Still with a comfortable lead, currently about 1,000, not stretching it any further. Still has to wait about an additional 3 minutes for that Gold Fury to respawn, whereas in the solo lane, still a little bit of a farm fest despite that gank. Onto Aquarius, the rest of Luminosity were really fine sacrificing the Chulainn because of the impact he brings in the team fights in the mid game.
But I have a lot of hopes for Trifecta in this game, especially in what they can do around these objectives. They've got Hurriwind on the Raw to give them lots of sustain. They've got Fafnir with the Coerce to help them with their attack speed so they can continue to burn down these objectives. That's one more thing if I'm Luminosity, despite that early Gold Fury going their way, that I'd be a little bit worried about Trifecta trying to pull.
The problem here for Trifecta is despite all those things that you mentioned for objectives, the team fights have to be executed to near perfection to set up Hurriwind for the easy Searing Pain Celestial Beam combination. And if that doesn't go off for Trifecta, they're just going to straight up lose those team fights.
That's really their only magical damage is Hurriwind being able to get that Searing Pain out in a meaningful way. Aror does bring some, though, in that Fafnir form, and it's nothing to scoff at. But instead of having maybe like a Raijin or a Scylla, someone who can tear through the team fight, even if they don't necessarily get a big ult off, they're really going to be relying on Hurriwind's Searing Pain.
And the thing is, Cynosure is just trying to find the right opportunities. We've seen how free he's willing to use that relic on the blink, whether or not it's a hunter or a soul lane or jungler. Any sort of little opportunity you give him, he's going to be looking for it, but he's not really trying to make those plays happen in the mid lane, despite earlier on where JeffHindla was sitting at about 50% health, and that could fall back or at least look back to haunt him potentially.
And Hurriwind has the Sands of Time there too, so he's capable. He'll have a little bit of extra cooldown rather, so he'll be able to go through those ultimates a little bit more often, have more room for trial and error. Will Trifecta with that setup that they're going to be looking for. But again, now that we're sitting here 10 minutes into the game, things are still all but even here. Only about 500 or so gold are separating these two teams, and everything's going to be nice and even. This is a big deal for Trifecta, being able to try and get some points back from Luminosity as both these ultimates are traded out by our solo laners. Is going to be huge. They've got to stick with them in this game and try and make something happen, or Luminosity's going to run away with it, and Trifecta, they're going to start losing their chances at this split.
Good use of the root from Kiki, honestly, making sure that the root from Aquarius wasn't going to be an impact in terms of stunning him under the tower. So you keep it the Chulainn in place, preventing him from getting behind you. That's the difference between Chulainn and a Hercules that can just push you. But that's not going to be an issue. Left-hand side, though, Snoopy still with a 1-level lead over BaRRa, not wanting to take a boxing fight, rather, despite having the red buff. BaRRa's more comfortable about farming and trying to get these Devo stacks.
That Gold Fury is about to come back up, so any kind of poke or fighting on this long lane side of the map, that's going to start to become more impactful. If you have to back in, and if the other team's aware of that, then they'll be able to start pulling up this Gold Fury. And as we said, these teams are both capable of burning it quickly with Soul and Jing over here for Luminosity, and then the Fafnir for Trifecta. They're able to do it as they do secure their own red.
It's going to be very important to see which team is feeling more ambitious. Who's going to pull the trigger on this Gold Fury. I don't necessarily expect Luminosity simply because of the way they played that first game, but they are trying to force something in the mid lane. Hurriwind took so much damage. He's sitting at 10% health, but now getting healed up.
That was 3 ults that committed to that. Baskin, Mask, and JeffHindla all have their ultimates on cooldown. And now recognizing Hurriwind had to go back, they're gonna come over here and try and help out BaRRaCCuDDa when aggressive and solos out Snoopy. Now Aror, who just tried to rotate over to help out, also gets caught out. Aror, please don't fall here. He's able to back up, but they know that without Snoopy and with Aror having to base, they have the man advantage at the Gold Fury.
A 2-man advantage is gonna be a 5-on-3. Kiki's making the rotation, but Aquarius falling suit. Oracles go down, but everyone from Luminosity turning their attention on that solo laner.
Mask gets a kill early on in that engagement. Aquarius is here now, and he's in that rage form. He tries to get the root off on the Cynosure and forces out those beads, so he's going to have to escape. Now that's 3 members who have fallen overall for Trifecta, or still rather 2 members that have fallen, and Luminosity walk away with a bit of a win there.
It's not very common that you could say that you soloed Snoopy, but BaRRaCCuDDa, he can certainly put that in his bucket list, just playing lights out. He was very hesitant to take certain fights in the laning phase, but now he recognized, like, he pressed the tab screen, he's like, all right, I got my 70 stacks, Snoopy's sitting at around 30 or so. That alone is a good enough of a power spike to try to force this, and even if I don't find the kill, I'm going to be able to just out-sustain him.
He also went with the Ninja Tabby, it looks like, over the Warrior Tabby for Snoopy, so he even had a bit of an attack speed advantage. Aror, they're jumping over the top, looking to set up the hammer, but Snoopy a little bit too far back to follow up, so they're just going to have to settle for getting the quick smack.
It's just all about trying to proc those Traveler shoes for Aror. He wants that 30 gold and just a little bit of practicing, right? The aim practice. He's like, all right, do I still got it? Throws it out there. Yeah. You're
just going to have to be worried. I mean, there's something to that. I know it's a little bit jokingly, but when someone's hitting those hammers all game long, it'll be in your head that Aror can definitely catch you with them. So that's something that'll be in the head of these players just a little bit. They know they got to worry about that long-range stun from Aror and that he's accurate.
And that's not a very... That's a very difficult ability to
It
pick.
is, yeah.
Compared to other abilities in this game, like you look at JeffHindla using his first ability, that's much easier to hit than a Fafnir hammer. And a lot of credit to Aror being able to consistently hit it from
up into the air, and he's ready to drop in. He doesn't land on top of anyone, though, so he has to back off. But Hurriwind commits his ultimate on top of JeffHindla. Maybe not the squishiest target, but getting some poke off on him.
Just not enough damage. A level 12 Ra with Dynasty Plate Helmet doesn't have that much penetration. Does have Shoes of Magnite, but no Spear of Desolation, no Obsidian Shard. BaRRaCCuDDa trying to dash away, but it's Mask going in.
Mask goes in now, initiating with the dash as he doesn't have the ultimate. Aquarius comes in and knocks up Snoopy, but it's Aror who's in trouble, and Baskin's ultimate sends him back to base, no problem. KikiSoCheeky coming through to try and knock him up and force the disengage, but now Luminosity can start taking the jungle.
Luminosity have found the weakness of Trifecta's comp in both games. It's Aror playing this Fafnir. He's just been a sitting duck during those transformations. The stellar burst into the supernova from Baskin was just too much to handle.
Now KikiSoCheeky trying to get them to drop the Gold Fury, only ends up dropping his life. Aquarius gets credit for that one, and I think even Snoopy used his ultimate and went up to try and help secure. So now that's one less cooldown that they'll have. Hurriwind is back up, but he's nowhere near local to help try and contest it. Mask ends up getting credit for it to Luminosity to take that Gold Fury, and Trifecta back off.
And Luminosity were actually pulling the Gold Fury south away from Cynosure. The calls and communication from LG have been so well executed in every stage of the game. It's just very impressive to see them execute during the SPL matches. And something else to take note of is when Snoopy used that ultimate, he was trying to kind of follow off from Cynosure's aggression. Unfortunately, it was just slightly out of range, trying to limit Baskin's damage.
Now Luminosity sitting up 5-1 in the kills and have about a 3 to 4K gold lead in their advantage as well. So yeah, looking right about 4,000. This is where they've transitioned now from, you know, we were taking those camps kind of lead to now we've gotten a few objectives kind of lead, and they can start being the ones to decide where on the map the fighting happens. Luminosity are kind of in control here.
And because of the amount of control and lead that they've built, JeffHindla sitting at level 13 has the second relic, and look what he opted to go for. We haven't seen this very often, but it's the girdle, the Belt of Girdle Frenzy here. He's going to be able to increase the damage, the penetration once he upgrades it. And that's very scary here for Trifecta. They're already losing these teamfights pretty well. And considering that Aror's still level 11, LG are going to look to try to abuse it before he gets the second relic.
And that's what we see JeffHindla trying to lock down Aror, who's able to get away. No problem, but he's got to be the call from. The Hammerstone comes out, but Mask is up in the air. He's looking to come down, and he does on the Hurriwind, who preemptively used the Aegis to try and shut down some of that damage. Aror goes into the Dragon form, but it's Snoopy who gets deleted in the backline without having anyone there to try and help peel from him. Now it's Cynosure who's going up against 3. JeffHindla and BaRRaCCuDDa looking to put in the damage. The Searing Pain does go through and at least hit 2, but Mask cleans up Cynosure.
Aror trying to run away. The dash is good from Mask. 3 dead from Trifecta. LG are just not letting go. Kiki was just proxy farming between tier 1 and tier 2, really not wanting to rotate here because he's 2 levels behind. Everyone from Trifecta too far behind.
Luminosity forced that engagement, 3 for 0 overall. very much coming out in their favor. And now Luminosity are starting to look like they're starting to look like the top team in North America. Trifecta's starting to look like they've come up against a bit of a wall here. This game's certainly not over, but you said it earlier, the way Luminosity is outplaying them, the way that they're picking where they want to have their fights, where they're picking their target selection, that seems like the part where they're ahead of Trifecta. Not mechanically, but where they're picking the fight. LG
completely forced that fight on the left-hand side because Trifecta cleared mid-wave and then tried to escape towards that left side jungle. BaRRaCCuDDa went in 1v3, knowing the rest of his team had his back. That's not very common for him to do that, but he really trusted his teammates. He didn't really care. Even if he did die for whatever reason, he respected the fact that the rest of his team would clean up and be on the better receiving end. Luminosity get the portal demon off the back of that engagement as well. So now they're able to come right back in and start going for these towers. That tier 1 tower in the solo lane now falls in favor of Aquarius, and now they can start looking to group up and push in other areas of the map too, because Aquarius will be a little bit more free to rotate. I'm looking for the plays out of Trifecta, and I just don't see it. They only have one kill in the second game. Credited to Cynosure. The blinks were happening early game, but not so much in the late because of just how much kiting Luminosity are able to do. There goes a little bit of setup, but the Aegis is available for Baskin. That was the blink and the ultimate coming up from Hurriwind. That was the best case scenario for them in their engagement, and it still didn't happen. Now Snoopy going to be dropping down to 3 members at the end of this. The Ohm comes out immediately to keep him from rolling, but the Aegis keeps him alive. Dharmic Pillars come out to try and pick up Snoopy, and Baskin rotates into the back. The ultimate drops on top of him, and Mask ends up getting credit for that kill. Now Aror is the one who's very low, and he leaps away. BaRRaCCuDDa and Mask, though, not looking to give it up. No, not done yet. Baskin's going to try to get the Stellar Burst off. Cynosure retreating under that tier 2. Look at these 2 low members. They're thinking about diving this. Baskin, or sorry, Jeff is going to stop the back from Aror, giving more timing for LG to get at least this tier 1, and maybe even keep going for this tier 2. And I don't know what it is totally, but this game feels way more out of control than last game did for Luminosity. Even though I said Luminosity were in control the whole time, it never felt quite like it's feeling right now. Luminosity are definitely in charge of where things are happening on the map. They're the ones that Trifecta just can't fight into right now. Absolutely. The first game was a slow and steady climb for LG just to build off of their lead, but this time they're rolling this ball down the hill, and it's just not stopping whatsoever. Kiki's going to pull Aquarius back into 4 members, but not enough CC to lock him down. The Searing Pain Celestial Beam off the mark. Even if those had hit, though, Aquarius is level 18 right now. I doubt it would have put more than a scratch onto him. He was happy to take the engagement against 3 in that rage form. Now Luminosity backing off. There's really not any objectives on the solo link side, but the Gold Fury has respawned. That's going to be their next point of fighting, and then they can start looking at that Fire Giant. This is how you know Trifecta are just getting a little too desperate. They're down this 8,000, 9,000 gold lead, but they're trying to make a play happen onto this tanky solo laner because they know there's no one else around him to bail him out if they can get him low enough. However, there was just too many CCs stacked on top of each other, too much diminishing return, not allowing Hurriwind to connect those abilities. The magical defense wasn't quite there for Aquarius at the time. He only had tier 2 of the Urchin at that point. And as soon as that Gold Fury enters the map, she is slain again. Luminosity taking that camp and moving their gold lead up to 9,000 in their favor. The blink one more time for Cynosure. It really just has not been impactful this game, Toli. Baskin is just all on top of his buttons, whether it's the beads, the Aegis, the Disapparate. He's there. He's ready. Hurriwind just can't get off the confirmed damage, sitting in the middle of the pact. Now Luminosity looking to group up in the middle lane. It's really only 3 members of them here, and they know they can push in. There's that frenzy you pointed out coming out from JeffHindla and Neom to prevent any kind of further engagement. That tier 1 tower falls rather easily. And they're still grouped up here as 5 Mast in the back. He's been doing a great job with his ultimate going up into the air and crashing down onto the likes of Hurriwind and Snoopy. They're trying to just push Trifecta away by going down the mid, going down the solo lane jungle. They're trying to spot off for Cynosure, and that's what JeffHindla is doing on the left. They're like, where is Cynosure? They have to respect his blink potential, and that's exactly what LG are doing by fanning out. Mask is kind of duking it out over there with KikiSoCheeky, but it's the Dharmic Pillars from JeffHindla that start the fight in Aquarius to lead Snoopy with help from Baskin's ultimate coming out over the top. The Supernova was a little bit too much. Searing Pain, though, does at least hit BaRRaCCuDDa, but Hurriwind drops. KikiSoCheeky able to return back onto Mask, so it's 2 for 1, but that tier 2 tower looks to be in a lot of trouble. Aegis is up for Baskin. He gets taunted back in. The tower switching. Aror getting credited with that kill. 2 for 2 at the end of the day, but this tier 2 tower, as Jeff was taking it, BaRRaCCuDDa was demolished. demolishing it.
Luminosity go a little bit too deep, but Aror's not ready to give up on it, and neither is Cynosure. He dunks down over the top, but the Dragon form is over. Cynosure ends up kicking a trade, but BaRRaCCuDDa cleans him up as well. KikiSoCheeky trying to finish out JeffHindla, and the credit ends up going to Aror. So now it's 4 for 3 in favor of Trifecta, but they give up the tier 2.
Not going to find the DSI. That Aquarius is just too tanky. Havoc sprint just for good measure.
He's still full health. Still
good at the end of the day, honestly. Aquarius is a one-man wrecking crew. He just cannot be stopped.
Yeah, Aquarius actually does not care right now. He's like, he really doesn't care what Luminosity's trying to, or what Trifecta are trying to do. He's at we saw that Searing Pain that missed earlier. He doesn't care.
When was the last time you saw a raid boss have a paddle?
What?
He has a paddle.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to the beach. It's summertime, totally.
That is one obnoxious raid boss. If I'm looking at Trifecta, I'm just like honestly worried. I am not putting on my bathing suit because I don't want to be anywhere near Aquarius.
No, I wouldn't want to be near that dude either right now. They do lock him down, but Aquarius still seems okay. He gets the 4-man knockup finally. The raid boss does fall. His paddle goes back to the base with him, and Trifecta have a chance to try and get an objective as it's only Baskin and Mask who are here.
Mask gets pinned against that ability. Trying to follow up though because Kiki used a little bit too much. The rest of his teammates were too busy on the portal demon. They got it, but at what cost? Trading solo for solo. Hurriwind is on the run.
Baskin's here now to try and shut this down. Aror has no hope of peeling for his mid laner. Baskin getting credit for that kill as well. Cynosure now the one who's in trouble, but holy Hurriwind just not doing enough damage right now.
No, not at all. His teammates just not able to really find the right targets for him to find the damage that he really needs. He's still sitting around the middle there with 10,000 damage, 4 members above him.
Does Mask have Genji's guard? What is this here? That might be why it looks like Hurriwind's not doing any damage. Mask is building pretty tanky.
Oh no, that's
actually.
Ankile.
Yeah, he has.
Oh yeah, Ankile and Genji's guard.
Yeah, that's why it feels like that's why it feels like he's not doing any damage right now.
Yeah.
He's building exceptionally tanky. So sure, Hurriwind was on that mark last fight as Luminosity do take down the Fire Giant, but I mean Mask is building he's building like a solo laner. They can't kill him.
It's an anti-raw build, honestly. That's a good idea because
but he doesn't have boots. Totally.
Not going there. He's trying to stop the sustain. The longer these team fights last for Trifecta, the better it is for Hurriwind trying to get the damage off. LG recognized this plan and are building around it. Now, normally you see a lot of warrior jungles that build tanky, but just because you're an assassin, that doesn't exempt you from the possibility of going the same route.
And we see it working for them just now. He gets isolated. Trifecta expecting him to be someone they can take down a little bit easier in these engagements, but absolutely not. Now he's going into the silver breastplate. He'll be able to withstand some more damage coming out from Snoopy as well. So he's looking to go in and be a little bit more utility. The knockup from his ultimate, the stun coming out from those acorns is what he's looking to get.
Now that doesn't even have to be the breastplate of Valor. It could be a hide of enemy in line, trying to return some damage onto Snoopy since he is opting to go for crit now, probably Poison Star first, or could even be the Spectral Armor, because once he lands in that backline, to have that AoE silence is a good thing.
Mask having a lot of options, building a little bit more utility. And we saw this from Ratatoskr earlier as BaRRaCCuDDa takes this Gold Fury, no problem, is that Ratatoskr can kind of land in the backline and get that AoE silence from the Ancile pretty easily. So that's something that is also could be a real disruption factor for the backline.
It's just too difficult now for Trifecta to really get into the right angle. They're down 13,000 gold. As if the first game wasn't difficult enough, this second game has been even more so. And they're with their main starter, Snoopy. Last week, it was with Meerkat. They weren't able to find the Ws that they quite wanted to. And now, if they lose this game, they're still going to be at 4 points.
And this isn't Trifecta looking bad. This is Luminosity looking world class. This is Luminosity looking like they could hang with Obey right now or hang with Dignitas.
I mean, LG, they are who we thought they were. They're just on top of every little thing this game. It's just really impressive to me how they're executing their team fight specifically, communicating who's diving the backline and then all eyes trying to save BaRRa and Baskin.
And Baskin also picked up that hasten ring, so even between supernovas or stellar bursts, he'll still be swinging with those in hands now that he won't have to worry with that haste effect about that movement penalty. So looking to try and make sure there's DPS in between those abilities as well is Baskin. But up into the air is Mask. He's looking to try and drop in on Snoopy. The Dharma pillars come down, but he goes directly up into the air.
It's actually Hurriwind at the backline that Mask is trying to take out. Cynosure diving the backline onto Baskin, but Cynosure trying to bit off more than he can chew. BaRRa's going going to escape for the moment as Aquarius takes out 2.
3 members have already dropped for Trifecta, and KikiSoCheeky looks to be the next one. Baskin dropping his ultimate on top of himself as a form of peel, and Kiki just doesn't have a chance. Now Aror wants to go die with his teammates as well. Let's all be buried together, says Aror, as Luminosity start barreling down the Phoenix, using the ultimate as Aquarius, just in celebration. It's going to be a 2-0 in favor of Luminosity, and they're looking dominant.
They're looking so good. Getting these 3 points now puts them from 10 to 13, only splitting 1 set so far. LG just cannot be stopped.
LG looks great. I want to iterate it again. We said it at the end of that game, but it's not that Trifecta looks bad. It's that Luminosity looks exceptional right now. They're playing so well as a team. They're playing so well individually. We saw BaRRaCCuDDa solo Snoopy. LG's firing on all cylinders.
I just can't believe my eyes the way LG played. Because normally they're more calculating, meticulous team, trying to take little leads here, little leads there. But that second game, no. They had the momentum. They felt very confident from that first game win, and they just didn't take their foot off the pedal.
I know in the middle of the game I said, what is it that feels so different about this game? But it was the huge golden experience lead that felt so different early on. Trifecta kept that first game close, but like you said, LG were like a snowball rolling down a hill in game 2, and there really wasn't a way for Trifecta to fight back into it.
And I think, honestly, Trifecta, they need to work on a little bit more of their engages here, because Cynosure did a good job with the Naja and the Ravana there, but I just didn't feel the impact from the whole point of the game. The Gold Fury control heavily favoring Luminosity. If you're going to draft Fafnir in a team comp and not use his coerce to get these Gold Furies, you might as well not even pick him.
Yeah, they really weren't getting the most out of their team comp, and I feel like that's what LG did so exceptionally well, really, was that they played to their team comp. We saw in Game 1 and Game 2, Trifecta tried to go for that setup, but it just really wasn't there, like especially with Hurriwind and then like Jungle or Cynosure.
Not able to find it, so that puts LG a little bit further in the standings.
Well, we could sit here and talk about this game all night long, totally, but that's why we got a couple of dudes sitting on the desk. Let's give it over to Tom and Aggro. Take it away.
Thanks a lot, my friend. Back to the desk. How you doing, Aggro?
I'm here on the desk. It feels good. This time on this side of the desk, and you know what? I'm okay with that.
Yeah, Aggro does really like to play both sides, but today only one side won. It was Luminosity Gaming on top, 2-zip. Fantastic stuff out here. This is the best they've looked in years.
Luminosity looks great. I mean, what else can you say? I mean, this is a team that, you know, had their struggles earlier on, and not even struggles necessarily. I don't think that's necessarily fair for me to say. It's just that they didn't look like that dominant North American team that we know they can be.
Exactly.
And now they look to be stepping into that role. Look, BaRRaCCuDDa played lights out today. If you would have asked me who the best North American hunter is before this set, I probably would have told you Snoopy. Afterwards, I don't think I can say that anymore. I mean, when was the last time you saw a solo kill in the duo lane? It feels like it's been forever.
And that's kind of something that this meta has really invited, and I think it's something that these North American hunters are going to flourish in. Both BaRRaCCuDDa and Snoopy, even Zapman to a lesser extent, are going to excel because of this meta, theoretically. But who's the one that actually puts it forward? Listen, for a long time, BaRRaCCuDDa was a fan favorite, and in my eyes as an analyst, good enough. This is the year that I think that BaRRaCCuDDa is actually that damn good. I think that he is one of the best, if not the best. And I think that a lot of the conversations that people have had around him being the best were not always on point. I think they were kind of fueled by players and fans' hearts instead of their brains. This time around, the numbers and the play back it up. He is the top hunter.
Look, Season 3, Fall Split, BaRRaCCuDDa played one of the best splits a hunter has ever played, in my mind. He almost single-handedly carried that Luminosity team at group stages. That game against Noble at group stages in Season 3 might have been the hardest individual carry ever by one player. This guy turns it up when it comes towards Fall and towards Worlds, and the fact that he had a performance like this today, it doesn't surprise me. This guy is clutch through and through.
BaRRaCCuDDa does have a team around him, and I've said before publicly that I think this is the best this is the best team that BaRRaCCuDDa has had around him since they won the World Championship. People prompt me and say, what about Season 2 when it was the same team? And I say, yes. Some of those players took a step down. Now, as we head into Season 4 Worlds, you know, I asked the question: Aquarius swapped out. Is he just as good as the rest of this team, or is he somebody that needs to pick it up?
I think he's doing wonderfully in the solo lane. He's filling his role exactly as LG needs him to do. He's not trying to be the star. He's not trying to be the big name solo laner. He's just trying to do his job. He's trying to zone out enemy backliners. He's trying to get ahead in lane. And even when he hasn't gotten ahead of his opponent in lane. He's been able to transition to the team fighting phase really, really well. He's clearly meshed with Mask thus far. Obviously, there's going to be more to that sort of that pairing in the jungle solo, and that's going to come with time. But through the first 4 weeks, he's looked great.
His ability to swallow his pride has been the #1 thing for me, honestly, when we look towards him. I think it's easy for a solo laner or a young rookie to come in and say, all right, I did my thing on the lower end team, but now it's time for me to really prove myself to everybody out there, whether it's Twitch chat, the tweeters, or whatever. But it's very difficult to just sort of be like, that's not important. Put my ego in my back pocket and just do what I need to do to perform with this team. We use the term plug-and-play player. I think he looks like the most pluggable and playable player that we've seen in a long time.
He's definitely has that willingness to learn, and that's what the players who are coming into the league and haven't had that experience that, you know, the BaRRaCCuDDas and the Zapmans and the JeffHindlas have had.
Yeah.
You have to be able to absorb that and say, you know, I'm just here to learn. Teach me the way that you can win a world championship, because he's on a team with a couple of guys who have won a world championship and can teach him how to do it, and he seems to be absorbing that information very well.
Yeah, really exciting stuff here. Trifecta across the way, kind of stutter steps. Mid lane is one of the positions for Trifecta that I feel really confidently on, but the Ra didn't work out in game #2.
No, in Trifecta as a whole just has these sets and these games where they look a little bit uncomfortable, and whether that's because of something that they did where they didn't look particularly comfortable, or the opposition putting them in a spot where they don't look quite as good. It's kind of a case-by-case basis. But this is a team that at the top end, I still believe can not only be the best team in NA, but could be one of the best teams in the world. This is a team that I think still should have world championship thoughts. They should be thinking about not only going to Worlds, but winning Worlds, because I truly think this team has that potential. We just didn't get a chance to see it today.
Trouble is now they're 3-5, they being Trifecta. Is it too late? Do they still have time to get there?
Absolutely. I mean, North America, we've talked about it quite a bit, but North America as a region just isn't as strong as Europe through the entirety of it. It used to be that North America wasn't as strong at the top end, but through and through was probably better pound for pound. That's not the case anymore. Europe is not only a better region at the top end, but in the middle and probably at the bottom as well. So that is tough for that if you're in a European situation like Energy is, where you haven't had a great start to your split, you can find yourself in trouble. Trifecta, I have no doubts, is going to be near the top of the standings and not a lot of time.
Well, now as we head into the game that you commentated earlier this afternoon, Space Station Gaming versus Noble, this one was a little bit different. Noble, the losing team, looked just as strong as they have all year. This was a standout game for Noble.
Without a doubt. This is the best Noble has looked all year, and that includes their 2-0 victory over a Mighty Storm, because that was against a roster that was in turmoil. I mean, yeah, what you said. This was a good Noble team today. Space Station was just outright better. Space Station just put enough pressure on to Noble in the late game. It took one bad call in game 1 for Noble to kind of throw it away, and that's what good teams do. They put you feel like you're in a pressure cooker. You have to make a play. You need to make something happen, and then when you try and force it, they break you for it. That's exactly what happened to Noble in game 1. Game 2, a little bit more of the same, where Noble looks like they're in a really good spot, and truly they were, but Annenster played great on this Thoth throughout this entire set. Zapman in game 2 was the best Zapman has looked in the fall split, without a doubt. He looked like a dominant hunter once again, and if Space Station wants to have those world championship aspirations, it's going to be more of Steven Zappas playing that way.
Exactly, and that's kind of, I am the long-time Zapman, stand behind guy. I've been sitting here for a long time saying, Zapman is one of the best, even when he perhaps wasn't. He was still kind of saying that. I believe in this guy, and his talent in the game is undeniable. Maybe he had some rust to shake off, but I mean, this is what he's capable of. Zapman combined with Annenster creates an atmosphere that you juggle in a couple of balls and then one of them just has to go off. You don't need both players to go off, which is what's so exciting for this roster. I didn't even mention the fact that they have Homie FA in the jungle and Jigs to help them out. Sure. This roster, I don't ask myself, how do they win? I ask myself, how do they lose? And as they go forward, how does Space Station Gaming ensure that they keep this consistency up?
Well, number one, ScaryD has got to fix that early laning phase. That was 2 games in a row where he fell really far behind really early and put Space Station behind the 8 ball. Now, his late game team fight is still probably one of the best in NA. He and Benji, for my money, are the 2 best team fighting solo laners in North America, with Aquarius shortly behind. his team fight's disgusting. It's absolutely amazing. That's why it was so sought after by Luminosity during this season, and then here with Space Station. But that early laning phase against a better team will cost Space Station games.
Here's my question, though. Noble in game number 2 clearly looked like they were in a position where they realized they couldn't beat Space Station Gaming, so they looked just to beat Scary D. And that almost got them in a position to win the game. Is that a tactic? Keep in mind, Noble, not one of the numero uno contenders for Space Station Gaming. A better team focuses the Achilles heel, so to speak, of the laning phase of Space Station Gaming. Can that alone transition into a win?
Absolutely. I mean, if you set not only Scary D behind, but Homie FA behind by extension, you start invading that right side jungle. I mean, we saw what Obey did to Energy today. They just invaded right side jungle and put Maniac behind, and all of a sudden they find themselves with a pretty easy victory. That is absolutely a path to win up against Space Station, and that's why it's very important for them to plug that hole.
Real quick, if you're coaching Space Station Gaming, how do you fix it?
I just make sure that Homie and Scary are on the same page. In my mind, whenever those 2v2 fights go wrong, it's because of either a bad decision by a team that's saying we should fight this when they probably shouldn't,
sure,
or the communication on let's go in, let's get out. You know, this cooldown's down, now we can fight. There might be a disconnect there. Whether that's the case or not, something has got to change with Scary D in the early game because he's got to be worried about that. But again, both games, he gets really far behind. He's super far behind Walrus. And then both games, he hits level 20 and Walrus is 17. And it's not a big lead for Space Station in either game. It's just that Scary D outright farmed better, sure, and outright team fought better than Walrus did today. So if you can kind of erase that, you don't have to be the world's best laner. You know what I mean? If you're going to team fight that well, you don't need to dominate everybody in lane. Look at what Dimmy did for the majority of his career in solo lane. Mm-hmm. So there were matchups where he would go in and just embarrass someone in lane, and Scary D will do that to you as well. But Dimmy was just there to team fight better than you, and they won 2 world championships off Dimmy team fighting better than other solo laners. That is an absolutely viable strategy for Space Station.
Whether it's about the laning phase or the battle phase, it certainly looks like Space Station gearing up for something else. As far as the standings concerned, though, E-United play later on this week, still undefeated, but they will be dethroned as the #1 team in North America. Luminosity went their 2-0 today, earns them even more points. Did get, well, bad luck 13. A baker's dozen for BaRRaCCuDDa and friends. How long do you anticipate them holding on?
I mean, E-United versus Luminosity, they have yet to face off, and that's going to be the big determining game, man. I can't wait either. It's going to be a ton of fun. I can't wait to see how E-United matches up against another top team, because their hardest matchup thus far has been against Trifecta, who is playing without Snoopy, who is arguably Trifecta's best player right now. So that is a set that, while it means a lot for E-United and certainly gave them a big confidence boost, and rightfully so, I think they know that they didn't catch Trifecta on their best day. And I'm sure that Polar Bear Mike and that crew want the chance to prove that they are the best undoubtedly in North America. They want to face off against Luminosity that's firing on all cylinders, and they want to try and beat them 2-0.
Absolutely. All these teams competing for their shot to play at hi-rez Expo. Don't forget, you can go as well. All you got to do is buy tickets. You don't got to beat the best of the best. hi-rezexpo.com. And you can join us here in January in Atlanta.
You should go. Trust me, it's the best time of year if you're a Smite fan. It gets better every single year, and I'm already counting down the days.
Don't forget, this weekend also in-game, you can grab yourself a free Enigma chest after completing three first wins of the day. Listen, there's a Conquest mode, and there's a Ranked Conquest mode. Where's the third mode? Where do I get my third win of the day?
We have a lot of other modes, Tom.
I do not believe in them.
There's Arena. There's
what is that?
Siege.
I've never heard of
Clash.
it. I don't know what you're talking
Assault.
about.
Oh,
what language are you thinking?
I'm thinking in English. Thank you for asking.
Oh, well, I thought you were an Andalite using ThoughtSpeak. But either way, we've got 2 more days of Pro League action. Saturday and Sunday should be exciting. This Saturday, we'll be talking European. It's going to be the Poppies and Team Dignitas versus Valen Squadron and Obey. And then later on, we'll see Burrito. But that Rival Elevate match, that should prove to be a little bit interesting.
That's a big match, as is Valen Squadron up against Obey. Obey putting their perfect record on the line. They still haven't dropped a game yet in the fall split, which is absolutely crazy with how competitive Europe is. And Valence today, finding the split against Dignitas, they can find another split or even a 2-0 up against Obey. Then they're throwing their hat in the ring for a top team in Europe. It's crazy over there.
Yeah, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Definitely a lot of fun. Tomorrow, we won't be here. Saturday will be European, and Sunday will be North American. Your favorite moment from today?
Favorite moment from today? I'll go with Energy and Obey. Just that whole set. It was just a lot of fun to watch and to be a part of.
Well, that's that. Thanks you for joining us, and we will catch you on Saturday. On behalf of all the commentators and producers and everyone else behind the scenes, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you on Saturday.